Welcome to this episode of 20 Minute Tims. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Jackson Irvine. Jackson, how are we doing?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Good, thanks. Good, mate. What about your time in Germany? How are you enjoying that now?
Yeah, unbelievable, mate. Like, there's exciting times I've had in my career. Kind of at the moment, obviously, 8 games to go, big promotion push, like tough games. But we've got full crowd back tomorrow night, first time since in a couple of years. So just everything's kind of fallen into place nicely for exciting last 6 weeks or so.
Good stuff, man. Like, you must be possibly the only guy to play for both the good guys in Celtic and St. Pauli. I think that's some achievement.
Yeah, a couple of people have kind of told me that recently, and that's a pretty cool stat to have, that I'm the only one to have played for both. So I'm sure I won't be the only one, but to be the first, is pretty cool.
That is cool. So we'll take you right back to the very start. That Australia, not that many football teams when you're growing up, but is it true you didn't get a team till you're like 15 years old?
No, like I was playing, like at a decent level, I suppose. Like I played like normal, like Sunday league kind of with my friends and playing at that kind of standard. But it wasn't till I was like 15, 16 that I started playing. Well, we call it like state league, but it would be the equivalent in Scotland. It would be like good junior level, basically. So I started playing for like a good club when I was about 15, 16. And it was my coach there that had the link into the Celtic Academy. And that's how I ended up with the trial in Scotland. So bit of good fortune on that side of things too.
Nice one. Do you think it's changed a lot since then? There's a lot more teams about in Australia that you could have been playing for a younger age?
Yeah, like there was the A-League, it only was in its like infancy. And they didn't have academies at that point. There was only like an under-21s, under-23s kind of reserve team. So basically there was no real pathway for young players. The only path is really just to get out and go and play somewhere else and try and like build a career in an academy overseas, which is, easier said than done. You got to have, 1, the connections, and 2, the resources to be able to do that. So I was very fortunate to have both of those things on my side. It gave me the opportunity to go and give it a crack overseas.
Why football then, compared to all the other sports, considering it's not one of the main sports in Australia?
As my old man and my granddad. Like my old man's from Aberdeen, my granddad's was from Holland. European football men, European family. Like I did play AFL a bit, like at school and with my pals and that, but it was only ever really football I cared about. Like even from the youngest age, my dad, when he used to come back to Scotland to see his parents, he'd bring me Soccer AM DVDs or the Man United bloody the annual. They used to do like the annual books and that, stuff like that. Like that's all I ever cared about when I was a kid, really. So no, it was single-minded.
Fair do. I don't get the annual at Christmas anymore, man. Disappointing. I used to always get the Celtic annual every year.
Quality, they were great. I used to love them, like especially when you're a kid. Unbelievable.
A lot of that stuff was a lot better when you were younger. It just seems to be, it's not the thing anymore, is it?
Nah.
So the trial with Celtic, how did that come about then?
So my coach in Melbourne, Tommy O'Halloran, is the cousin of Michael O'Halloran, Michael O'Halloran Senior, father of Michael, obviously, is the player. Just a bit of good fortune, as I say. Like he was my coach. He kind of saw something in me, as I say, gave me the opportunity to play first team football at 15, 16. And he was the one that kind of organised, my trial, in the sense that organised in the sense that if you're ever going to be in Scotland visiting your family, I can get you in for a few days kind of thing. So, it wasn't the most like legitimately set up kind of deal. Like they didn't fly me out, or anything like that. I went in. I was there for 7 days, a couple of training sessions, a couple of trial games, and it was honestly the last thing I was ever expecting. I was actually over on holiday visiting family, and obviously we kind of built it around the fact that I was going to be able to go and train there for a few days too. But I don't think any of us ever really expected that it would come to anything.
That's mad. So it was just a sort of rock up when you can, and you decided, I'm visiting family, I might as well give it a shot. Yeah,
it's kind of like that. Listen, obviously my parents, they knew that I had that opportunity, and we kind of built it around. My sister she was a bit older. She was living in Holland at the time on an exchange, and I don't know, it made sense. We were going to go over for Christmas. It was in December, my trial. We were going to go over and see family at Christmas, and they were like, well, we might as well see if we can tie it in. But my parents didn't even come. Like my mum's sister, who's like, because I've got family, mum's and dad's side in Scotland. She was the one who took me, drove me up to the game at Lennoxtown on the Astro on like a Tuesday night against Partick Thistle or something. And, after the game, I get pulled into the kind of boardroom at Lennoxtown with, Chris McCart, Tommy McIntyre, Stevie Frail, the couple of the scouts. And, I just thought, oh, this must just be what they do after a trial. They sit you down and tell you how you went. Obviously, it was a little bit more than that. And they were like to me, we want you to stay. Like if that's like going to be okay. And then we had to go through the horrendous phone call of telling my mum and dad, yeah, by the way, that's me. I'm not coming back.
So what was the time scale between that and then moving over to Scotland for a while?
So I went back. So I had the trial in December. Obviously I couldn't just like stay. You had to kind of get your life in order, finish up a few things at home. So I went back until I think it was early March, April in 2010, and that was December 2009, and then about March, April 2010, I made the permanent move.
Ah, nice one. So you came in, was it still Tony Mowbray was Celtic manager at that point?
Literally the week I signed, I think he got sacked, and Lenny took over as the caretaker. It was just after that Ross County semi-final in the Scottish Cup semi-final. I think that was like the week I signed. So it was a dramatic time to come into the club.
Did you go? I take it you went into the reserves first and played with them rather than straight into the first team.
Oh yeah, under 19s. Like straight in. Like there was this. So this was like I was right on that border of when they changed it from. There was at that time there was still under 19s, then reserves, and then the first team, and then they kind of changed it where the under 20s became like the reserves and the academy. Like so, I was like that 2 years when I was in that was when it changed. So I was kind of in the 19s to begin with, and then as I became the 20s, that became the reserves. So no, it was that's where I started with. Guys like Declan Gallagher, James Forrest, Richie Towell. That was like they were the kind of senior boys in that under 19s when I first came in.
There's a lot of good players in that sort of squad. A lot of them maybe didn't go on to play and have careers at Celtic, but they all went on to have decent careers, whether it be in the SPL or abouts, didn't they?
Yeah, like Stephen O'Donnell's obviously doing unbelievable playing for Scotland, and Captain of Motherwell, Declan Gallagher's had a good career. James Keaton's had a few good clubs, few promotions, and lots of talented players, and obviously Jamesy and Cal McGregor of my age are the two that obviously have gone on to live the dream, I guess, of breaking through the academy and becoming mainstays.
Could you tell, looking at those two at the time, that they were like standouts, or was everybody sort of on an even keel and they've managed to push on? Yeah,
there were two of the standouts for sure. Jamesy was a different level. Like Jamesy barely even trained with us in the under 19s at that time. He was kind of more with the first team permanently and just came back to play the odd game kind of thing. And then Cal was probably a little bit later in terms of the development. Like obviously everyone knows he went on loan and kind of came back and then got his chance under Ronny, and he had a little bit more of a different path. He didn't kind of just crack in straight away out of the youth team. But on the day-to-day, you could tell his ability was unbelievable. Could play out wide, middle of the pitch, deeper, further forward, got a goal in him. Like just super player, super all-round player, like great attitude, good pro. Just kind of, we just needed that opportunity, I think. And when it came, he's been, as you say, I don't know how many games he's played now, be 300-400 games, something now, like unbelievable career.
Yeah, he's a class player and captain of the club as well. What a guy. See when you first came over, did Celtic help you out with getting digs and sorting everything out for you? Because obviously coming from Australia, there's no language barrier, obviously, but it's a massive lifestyle change for you.
Yeah, they did. I think probably in hindsight, I think even the club itself will have grown into a different place. I think the world in a lot of ways is changed in the last kind of 10, 15 years in terms of care, just general care of like players' mental health and the way that they, I don't know, the attitudes towards these things, homesickness even in young players. Like I'm sure now younger players will probably have better access to support and things that probably we had at that time. And I'm sure it was probably even worse before, even like when I signed, I know I'm not that old, but there was no FaceTime, no, anything like this. Couldn't just pick up a phone and, speak to my parents like I do every day almost now. So it's a kind of a different time, but they did have, obviously you get put in digs. I lived with 2 other players and, you kind of just have to learn the ropes yourself, I guess. And just kind of, it's difficult as a young player, and I'd never been in any kind of professional setup before or even full-time of any sort. So it was all brand new. So there's definitely an element of feeling your way into it. And, I was very lucky that a couple of the lads, 2 boys in particular in my youth team, kind of embraced me into like their friendship groups that they were local lads, and those boys are still my some of my best mates now. So that was a massive help.
Who were the 2 boys?
Joe Chalmers and Marcus Fraser were and we had a good group, and guys like around that time, Darnell Fisher, Paul George, like we were all kind of in that same team, and we spent a lot of time together in those years in particular. But as I say, I've stayed good mates with them kind of, but beyond then.
Teammates at clubs further down the line as well, eh?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Marcus and me ended up having probably one of our most successful periods at Ross County together, a few years later.
What about the homesickness? Did you get homesick at any point? Because coming from Australia to Scotland, it is a massive change, even if you had been on holiday the odd time.
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure. Like, I think, especially in the very beginning, I don't even think you're kind of emotionally capable of processing what it is you're kind of doing. Like, I look at my mom, I speak to my mom about it now, and 16-year-old, I just basically upped and left and moved to the other side of the world, and like she was in absolutely no way ready for me to go and do that, and I was just like, selfish little bastard. Like, I've got this opportunity. Like, I don't see her. Like, didn't even care. But you look back now and bloody hell, the magnitude of what you're kind of doing at that age, it's especially for how difficult it would have been for my family and my parents. And even for me, I've got like a surprise myself at times that there's an element of mental strength maybe you don't even know you have to kind of graft through those difficult times.
I get that sort of made you grow up a good bit because you're all left there. You did get brought in by those boys and help with your pals, but you don't really have that sort of those parents looking over you, giving you that guidance. Do you think it made you grow up a bit and have to learn on your feet?
Yeah, definitely. In ways, but also it's like you mature. I don't know. It's you have kind of an emotional maturity in the sense that you're capable of dealing with things in a better way, but maybe practically things aren't as easy because you haven't got that kind of parental figure to just like when you don't know what to do. And I remember when I was 18, 19, when I moved out of digs and got my first apartment or whatever, and didn't have a clue how to do anything. All of a sudden, it was just like someone dropped me in a place to live on my own. And I was like, right, go on then, see how you get. And did not have any idea how to work anything. You know what I mean? But then you do grow up quicker because you have to just figure it out. You're right.
How easy do you think it is for players to fall off the rails? Because you're getting paid an all right wage and you're playing football and people kind of know you once you sign for Celtic. How easy do you think it is just to get lost in that lifestyle?
Yeah, you can still see it happen on the regular. I think one small kind of thing we had in our favor at that time was that with no social media. So I don't think there's not as much I think nowadays there's like a lot of hype around like younger players because you see clips of them, you can post in clips of scoring goals for the youth team and, blah, blah, I don't know, this and that. As you talk about, for us, it was more going out in Glasgow, being out in Queen Street and Sauchiehall Street and meeting people, seeing people and, as you say, we're earning decent money for a 17, 18-year-old. But that was more kind of, you're more in danger of getting caught in that world. Whereas now I think younger players are more at risk of like getting caught in their own hype or thinking that they've got a career because they've got a blue tick and 10,000 followers. You know what I mean? I think it's a different kind of danger to those younger players now.
Yeah, it's a trap that you've seen it a lot with players recently. You say you were on a fairly decent wage, but that wasn't always the case. There was a wee strange contract when you first signed at Celtic, wasn't there?
Oh, like expenses, £100, £100 a week in a brown paper bag at the end of it. That was all you used to get before, you went on to like contract. But yeah, no, it was I say decent money, but it was just like when you're living in digs and you're getting all your accommodation, everything paid, it was just money in your pocket. So if you go and buy a trackie from JD Sport at the end of the week or something like that, that's about it.
See, when you first joined, you hadn't been in a professional setup before. What did you make of the coaching and the youth development at Celtic?
Yeah, it's like elite. I probably didn't really appreciate it at the time, like how competitive and how good we were, playing in like that next gen series and playing against like a lot of like world-class academies that have gone on to produce top players. And we weren't just competitive. We used to beat these teams like regularly. And, again, the academy's been, as you say, maybe not producing loads of players that go on and play hundreds of games for the first team, but a lot of guys that have strong careers. And the team I was a part of in particular has produced many, like almost everybody's gone on to have like a really good career, and it's just a testament to the coaching and the level of professionalism that we had at that time.
What do you think it is that separates the ones that do make it at Celtic to the ones that just maybe fall out of it and just can't get to that level?
Yeah, it's small margins. It's shocking how much luck comes into it as well, like timing, luck, like like obviously you've still got to have the ingredients to do it. You look at like a KT and Jamesy and Cal, probably the last three ones to have like really kicked the door down in terms of being like top players. There is an element of luck, but you've got to produce and those players are all incredible, like top world class, they're top players. And but yeah, there is an I don't know, I look at like my time at the club and as a central midfielder coming through at 18, 19, there was like Scott Brown, Baram Kyle, Joe Ledley, Victor Wanyama, Ki Sung Yong. Like these are all international midfielders playing at like, Charlie played in the middle of the pitch as well at times. Like talking about like super players that all went on to play in the Premier League, except for Bruni, obviously. But do you know what I mean? It's not saying that worked against me. I was nowhere near at the level to be able to play at Celtic at that time anyway. But I just mean that barrier for you to get there is, it's quite hard to break into a midfield like that,
Yeah, I suppose you're right. Like James Forrest, he was getting coached by Lennon in the reserves. Mowbray gets sacked. Lennon gets parachuted into the job and brings Forrest up with him, and he's no really looked back since. See, when you're talking about all those class midfielders there, do you take that as a challenge, or do you take that as I'm probably not going to see my future here because I don't see any game time coming up?
Oh, definitely as a challenge. Like I loved it. Like I loved being able to train, with these players and learn from them, and even just pre-season games, being involved in, like those moments. Like it's just all opportunities to like learn and improve and being around, like as I said, like international grade midfielders. So no, definitely as a challenge, but like obviously there's an element of being realistic in it as well. And for me, obviously I saw my path was going to be to go on loan and play, and then potentially have the chance to come back and prove myself in a preseason, or in that way. I didn't see the opportunity coming just by kind of being on, the day to day. So, but that was, ultimately that was probably the best decision I made, going on loan and playing, and kind of led to the moves that propelled my career to where it's gone.
Just before we come on to the loan moves, there's been a lot of chat recently with Ben Doak getting it looks like he's going to move to Liverpool from Celtic, and the chat comes up again, there's no pathway for players at Celtic. I don't really agree with that. Do you think if players are good enough, they will play? When you were at the club, did you think, no, what, if I put in my effort here, if I get a bit of luck, I could make an appearance or two in the first team?
Yeah, well, God, you only have to look at like my age group of players that played games. You had Philip Twarzik played games, Carl McGregor, myself, Tony Watt, who else? Darnell Fisher played a couple of seasons almost in the team. Joe Chalmers made appearances, Marcus Fraser. Like the list goes on. Like we all got sniffs here and there. You know what I mean? Like it was but then kind of setting it on, and Dylan McGee, bloody hell, like the list goes on. But yeah, there's to be able to really break through and stay. And it's so difficult because you're up against, as I say, like depth and size of squad, and you've really got to be like ready to. There's no time to, I don't know, have 5 or 6 average games to build yourself into the team. You've got to be ready. This is Celtic. You've got to win every week. Like there's no, you've got to be ready to compete at that level on the week to week. And it is difficult for young players, as we see all around the world. Players are going to have dips of form, and that's just not really something that's accepted at that level.
No, it's not. It's always that I need a run of 10 games, but whoever has 10 games to give a player a seat, that's like a quarter of a season sometimes, so it's not going to happen. How did Neil Lennon, Alan Thompson, and Johan Mjällby, sort of Celtic icons, were the coaching staff then? How did they treat you when you came up? Was it individual? Did they speak to you individually? Did they work with you individually, or was it just you're part of the first team training? Let's go.
That was it. It was an expectation. Like if you got the shout, you just had to be ready and prepared to step in and do a job. Like it was no, like as you say, there was no, I don't know, arm round you, go on, son, like this is your chance to go and be like. No, it was like, no, you're a Celtic player, come in and do the job. And like Neil Lennon was fantastic with me in terms of giving me opportunities. Like he pre-season and gave me my debut, and probably put me in as good a position as I could have been in at that time, especially after the kind of pre-season before I did go on loan. Was probably, funnily enough, it's that timing. It's probably the closest I ever got to kind of having a chance to play. And then it was like the decision had kind of already been made that I would go somewhere else and play. And then when I came back at the end of that season, Lenny moved on. So it's funny, just again like little bits of timing how it works.
That's just that luck again you're talking about, isn't it? It's just one of those ones, if you had stayed, you might have got a chance, but then again, you might not have.
Exactly. And to be honest, as I say, I think realistically, I look back and it's easy to sit here and be like, time you have. But I don't think I was ready. I really don't. I don't think I was prepared to play at a Celtic level at that time. Like, as you say, maybe it'd have gone in and maybe that confidence would have come in. But as I say, realistically, when I look at my time, especially when I went to Kilmarnock on that loan, and how difficult I found that, it probably just showed that I wasn't quite at that standard.
You're quite an unusual case, because usually young players, when they're going out on loan at Celtic, they maybe go down to the Championship or League One and then build their way up to maybe a Premier League team. But you went straight out on loan to Kilmarnock. You said it was difficult. Why was it difficult, and was it just being thrown straight into a first team environment?
Yeah, for sure. And such a competitive environment, as you say. Like it was, I was, as you say, I think a lot of guys go on loan and, and rightly so, go and play games at a level where they're going to play every week. And for me, fortunately, that came at the top level in Scotland. And, I was around guys like Chris Boyd and Alexei Aromenko and Barry Nicholson and Sammy Klingen and, Manuel Pascali, Craig Sampson, like Scottish boys that had
experienced guys,
good careers, experienced guys. And I'm, coming in as this 19, 20-year-old kid from Celtic, like never kicked the ball first team level. And, it's bloody hell, there's a baptism of fire in ways. And you say we struggled that season, and, at times, we ended up kind of like scraping up, ninth or something like that. But there's really difficult times during those seasons where boys are, facing relegation, pay cuts. These are like career changing moments for guys like this. And, I've got 2 years left on my deal at Celtic. So it's not like for me, it's like, and then you realize exactly what you're competing for. And I don't know, it's difficult, and it's a real eye opener.
Was it the wake up call for you? Because as you said, like, you were kind of involved in that relegation scrap. You've managed to get out it towards the end. And I think, did Hibs go down that season as well?
Yeah.
So they were just below you. So you see how precarious a situation it is. Do you think, it's not all going to be plain sailing if I'm at Celtic all the time? Because further down the line, this could be where you end up.
Yeah, God, for sure. Like I remember when I went to Killie, I signed for Killie. I thought, bloody loan move. One of the bigger clubs in Scotland. established, but this blah blah blah. And I remember getting the message like the first morning, like, "Oh, lads, we're at this training ground today." Do you know what I mean? Like the minibuses picking us up at Kilwinning or at Science Parks in Glasgow. Like, again, just these little things. I'm used to the glamour of Lennoxtown every day, and all of a sudden, you don't even know where you're training on a Monday morning. You know what I mean? It's it was just, again, it's these little eye openers that are massive for players when they do go on loan, when you realise it's not all, the glamour of Celtic.
What about playing time? You got playing time, but you were sort of thrown all over the pitch. Did you really have a position that you preferred then, or was it further down the line that you really cemented as a centre midfielder?
Yeah, that was probably, if anything, more than all of the other stuff, the most difficult part was the fact that I played a different position just about every week. I played centre half, right back, centre mid, left mid, right mid. I think I almost would have played every position on the pitch. It was one of those things where you probably didn't have the trust in me as a young player to put me in the spine of the team, especially when we were like struggling in moments. That's why I ended up in that kind of right back on the side of the midfield kind of positions. But I was always a central midfielder, and it was just about, like, I suppose, earning that trust. And I had the attributes to be able to play other positions, but physically, that was where I was always going to play my best football.
And that's where you came on when you made your debut for Celtic. What was it like that day, half-time substitute against Hibs?
Yeah, totally unexpected. Like, I remember warming up with it was Lucas Saliska at the time, and we were just like pinging balls at each other like we did at half-time, just messing around, loving just being out on the pitch at half-time. And I remember just seeing like somebody giving me like Jacko like from the tunnel, and I ran down, like, thought someone needed someone to grab something from the dressing room or something like that. I don't know. Like, the last thing I was expecting was to get the shout. I left my jersey on the bench, because you bring your jersey out, thingy. So like, he said to me, "You're going on," and I was like, I had to send one of the kit men out to grab my jersey from the bench. So I didn't even have it with me. But yeah, no, it was the same. Again, no arm around the shoulder, no, I had this big opportunity, you're ready for this, nothing like that. It was just like, you're going on for Victor, go and do your thing. That was it. Like, no big deal, just total trust in me to go and perform.
What was your mindset like then? Was it fear, or was it, no, I'm ready for this, I want this?
Myself. Yeah, no, like, you think, yeah, obviously buzzing, like, so excited, like it's going to be class, like going to get to play in a league game at home, 50,000. What a way to make your senior debut, But also there's an element of don't want to make a mistake, don't want to, and just that, not even so much about making a mistake. You just like so badly wanted to do well and impress, and it to be, a good moment for you.
How difficult is it being a young guy coming on? I think young players like yourself that have come through the youth maybe get a wee bit more leeway than others, but that's sort of grown if you misplace a pass or put it out. How do you deal with that mentally, like after that? Because I think I always find with some youth players, you can sort of tell like whether they've got it upstairs to make it that mental strength, because that's probably half the battle for me. How do you deal with that if you make a mistake to go, no, I'll just keep playing my game?
Yeah, like, I'm always my own harshest critic. So like, groans and everything are expected when you make mistakes, but I'm always probably the hardest on myself when I make those mistakes. So it's not really something that affects me too much. Like, you have a little crack at yourself and this and that. But as you say, with certain players, that ability to just switch back into one I'll say in particular, I remember from being a young player when he first came up, was Liam Henderson. Like, he was 3 years younger than me, I think it was. And when he kind of came up around the same time, or maybe the year after. And this like ability to like try a pass or, make a mistake and try and like create something or do something, and then to go and get the ball and do it again. Like, it is what you say, quite rare. And you can tell that the young players that kind of have that. And he was one that I don't know, really sticks in my mind. So I remember just thinking, he would do something, it wouldn't work, and he would just go right back and demand the ball and go and try it again. It's a really good quality.
He burst through towards the end of one of the title-winning season. I think he scored up at Partick Thistle. Then I always remember him for that assist against Inter Milan for John Guidetti. It was a peachy ball through.
Yeah.
Your debut didn't quite go to plan. Ended up 2-2. What about after the game? Was it just a good debut, or is it nothing to do with that? Just it's all about what happened in the game for the team?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Results. That was Neil Lennon's whole thing was just results. Didn't matter. And I got an absolute roasting after the game. And I don't know if you've heard the famous. I think Charlie Mulgrew told the story on Open Goal about the James Forrest getting hit with the prawn sandwich. But that was after my debut.
Oh, what happened? Was it tray sandwiches launched?
Yeah, and then James ended up with a sandwich halfway down his thing, but just had to sit there with it on him until he'd finished speaking because he didn't want to wipe it away. But it was one of them things. It was just a long ball over the top, and Fraser comes charging out, and Mikael Lustig's looking at the ball, and the two of them run into each other, and he gets in. I don't know who it was. Someone gets a tap in, and we drew 2-2, and that's the game. We missed a bag full of chances, hit the bar. It's a funny old game, isn't it? You come away with a win that day. It's probably a different feeling, a different memory.
What did Lennon say to you specifically in the changing room?
I think it was something along the lines of, someone told me you were already a good player. Fucking nowhere near it. something along those lines. So but I think I wasn't the only one. I think everybody in the room except one or two got a roasting that day.
Is it the senior players that he doesn't let it go? Or is it everybody?
Oh God, no, everybody. He didn't hold back on anybody. I think it was actually James. He was the only one that got away with it that day because I think he played quite well. But
except he's got a sandwich running down his face.
Except he's got prawn mayo running down his cheek. Other than that, he was fine.
What about when you come back into training? Does somebody come up to you then and say, "Oh, you done well," or "That was a good debut," or is it just you're part of the first team now? This is how it goes.
Yeah, it was kind of like that. It was early in the season, and it was kind of before the European campaign had kind of started, and it wasn't really a big deal made of it, to be honest. It was like there'd been a couple of other debuts around that time as well. Boys had come on and played early in the season because we were still missing a few bodies. So it wasn't really a big deal made of it. It was just kind of like crack on. I'd been in this. I think I was in the first 3 or 4 squads of the season on the bench in the stand. Traveling with the team. It wasn't really much of a big deal.
Was that then after that you had the taste of first team football? Is that why did you push for the loan moves, or did Celtic line them up for you?
It was a bit of both. I'd kind of obviously I wanted to play, and I'd kind of recognise that the opportunities were going to be limited for me, and obviously it was an exciting prospect of with that kind of loan move. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I don't know, without not in a disrespectful way, but a Championship or League One side, to go and play minutes. It was a level that was going to be really kind of help me grow. So I think it was a bit of both.
What about towards the end of that Kilmarnock season when you're coming up to it? You managed to sort of cement your place towards the end, playing in midfield more often than not. Mm-hmm. Did you come back that summer thinking, I want to press on and go back into the Celtic first team and try and get there? Or did you still think maybe another loan move would be the best option?
I definitely thought that there would, I'd grown enough into a place where I'd be like, there'd maybe be more opportunities for me. But as I say, Neil Lennon had moved on. Ronny Deila had come in, and to be honest, not in a bad way, but he was honest with me pretty early doors when we came in. We had a couple of training sessions, pre-season games. He kind of made it clear to me that I wasn't kind of part of his plans, and then for me, it was about just finding another move that was going to, I don't know, give me a chance. That you always got one eye on Celtic when you're a player there, whether you go on loan or not. You always think all it will take is that a season away, or have that time to be able to come back and get an opportunity. So I hadn't given up on that thought, but it was definitely, he'd made it clear to me that the best path for me was going to be to go on loan and play again.
Yeah, it's just that bit of luck again. If Lennon had stayed on another season, you might have got that chance. But see, Neil Lennon, what did you make of him as a coach? Because after last season was disastrous for Celtic, but before that he was a successful Celtic manager, and you always hear these stories about him. But was he a good coach or a good manager for you?
Well, listen, he's an elite motivator. In terms of whatever tactic that was to get the best out of players, whether it was fear or passion or whatever it was. He was a motivator and results driven manager. And that was his, I worked with Nigel Clough at Burton, and, they're all cut from that. Martin O'Neill, Brian Clough. I could see similarities through them, all the trickling down from that kind of style of management, which was getting the best out of individual players and and like elite level motivation. Obviously, the European games required a bit more of a, there was more tactical approach to those things. But in terms of his qualities as a manager, that was probably what I would say was his defining one from my experience.
Did you enjoy training under Lennon?
Yeah, listen, it was intense. It was, it was like that was what it was like in a lot of ways. But it was, it's difficult to think about at that age because, again, you're so focused on yourself, rather than the full thing. Because all you're thinking about is, I want to impress, I want to do this, I want to do that. Sometimes you're not even really paying so much attention to what's actually going on, big picture. So sometimes it's probably difficult to actually say how much was I taking in terms of tactics and coaching and things like that, because you are so focused on yourself and your own performances in those sessions, because that's like a World Cup final every time you go out to train with the first team.
When Ronny Deila comes in, how big a difference was the management styles between him and Lennon then?
Yeah, obviously I didn't work with Ronny Deila much because he made it clear to me early doors that I was going to be kind of going on loan again. But there was a distinct kind of difference in terms of his relationship with the players. Ronny was obviously had a lot more of a kind of personal relationship with the players, rather, and I've seen that kind of more as I've worked with European style coaches rather than the kind of old British managers, and the Europeans are more coaches. I don't know if that's kind of there is a kind of comparison there, and that was probably something I noticed just in the brief time that I did kind of work with him.
So was that you then? Just it's not going to happen here. Ronny Deila was sort of famed for working with young players. Did you feel a bit aggrieved that you didn't get a chance, or did you just think it's just not going to happen?
Yeah, of course I didn't, especially when it was so early. Like I didn't even get the kind of pre-season opportunity to kind of go and kind of show something. It was basically from early doors. It was like it's not going to be, it's not going to be for you here. But listen, again, you look back on it and you think at least he was honest. And sometimes players get caught in that limbo of thinking that they're going to be involved, and you end up in no man's land as a reserve, squad player, and you don't get any football at all. So at least I knew where my position was, and it allowed me to go and have another full season of playing every week.
Yeah, the move to Ross County. Did you ever fear there was no move coming, because that was quite late in the window, wasn't it? And you might have been stuck in that limbo under a manager that doesn't want you. You're not going to get first team football. It could be another season where you don't get first team football. Then you're looking at your age. You've not got a lot in there. So was it that sort of reasoning behind the decision to go to Ross County? Because Australia to Ross County is quite a move.
Yeah, God, Melbourne to Dingwall is not not where everybody kind of sees your career path going. And listen, I was reluctant in the beginning. One, because of the start they'd had to the season. I think they had no wins from 7 or 5 or 6 games when I first signed. But it was SPL. It was they didn't even have a coach actually. It was Roy McGregor who contacted me directly. They just sacked the previous manager, Derek Adams. And there was no manager, and he called. I remember it was me, Michael Gardine, and Darren Barr, because we'd all been at Kilmarnock the season before, and Midge was on the out at Dundee United, and I think Darren just left Hearts. Maybe he'd been on loan from Hearts or something. I can't remember. But the three of us all signed on basically the same day, which was nice as well because it was 2 teammates that I'd worked with before. But yeah, they were obviously in a proper scrap up there with the start that I did the season. But yeah, again, working with Jim and Billy Dodds that season was probably the best thing that could happen.
Yeah, and look, the first season was decent, but you formed quite a good team there, didn't you? You got going in towards the end, got away from relegation, no bother, and went on to have a few good seasons, didn't they?
Yeah, there was the back end of that first year. I think we had about 11 points in February. Like we were nowhere near it. And then we just clicked into we started playing, we've been tinkering with formations and players, and we brought a few in January, and And then it was around, I think we won on Valentine's Day. We beat Motherwell at home. And then I think we won 10 games straight or something, like, and we ended up finishing 8th or 9th, like well clear of the bottom. Like, we had an unbelievable run in at the end of that season. And then we kicked on the following year and top 6 finish, and a cup win. So yeah, it was, we just found that those ingredients of we had a really close knit group, good group of players, and we found a system that worked for us.
I think you beat Celtic 2-0 up and 3-2 up in Dingwall after being 2-0 down, if I remember right. It might have been a different season, but what was it about that Ross County team? Because the next season, as you say, you kicked on. Did you feel like a first team player then at the end, when that got to the end of that season? You think, right, that's me, I'm a first team player, I need to be playing all the time now?
Definitely at the end of that first year. And then it was like, obviously I went back to Celtic again for that, for another pre-season. And then actually I did play a couple of pre-season games. I played over in Helsinki against Spurs. I think we got humped 6-1, and a couple other games like that. But it was just kind of, again, waiting for Ross County. Had made it clear they wanted to take me on a permanent, and it was just like all that crap going on in the background. And even the fact that they, even though it was just training compensation, but they paid a fee for me and this kind of thing. You go into a club then. I played the full season there before, even though I was only 21, 22, you do feel like, I'm a senior player now, like I'm a kind of cemented part of the team.
And that was season, you had a great season, and I wouldn't say revenge, but you managed to play against Celtic and put them out the League Cup semi-final. What was it like that day? Because coming up against Ronny Deila, the guy that let you go, did you feel like, I've got something to prove here? Or was it just about doing your job for the team?
Well, it was quite funny, actually. We played, so I signed for Ross County on the Tuesday before the first game of the season, and the first game of the season was Flag Day at Celtic Park on the Saturday. So I literally left Celtic on the Monday, went up to Ross County, signed on the Tuesday, and then I started at Celtic Park against Celtic on the opening day of the season on the Saturday. And I was like a man possessed. I was like absolutely running around like a madman that day. Like it was, I actually had a decent game. And then, yeah, obviously the semi-final was, obviously we got a stroke of fortune with the red card early doors, but we kind of won that game. A little scare at the end. I think we gave away, I think we had a penalty. I think Lee Griffiths missed a pen like around the 80th minute or something, but we ended up winning that game quite comfortably. And it was a unbelievable experience. Like obviously beating Celtic at Hampden, however the circumstances, it's a special memory.
That was a good team. You were a steady team then. You were doing quite well in the league at the time. Did you believe you could beat Celtic that day? Because Celtic weren't the best under Ronny Deila, and there was cracks after the start of the season with the Champions League qualifiers, and Celtic never seemed to get going that season. Did you believe you had a chance?
Yeah, and then obviously Scott Brown was out. I think he came on, but he'd been injured, and they were like having him missing, and with the kind of way that, as you say, the kind of form they were in was like not the most convincing. It's probably as good an opportunity as you're ever going to get in terms of if you produce the performance. And obviously it doesn't matter. Whenever you play Celtic or Rangers, you need the luck on your side that day as well. But yeah, it was all kind of there for us that day. We played really well, but of course I think we lost the goal after 2 minutes, so we're already 1-0 down. But then we actually, even before the red card, we had a couple of good moments, and yeah, it was probably as good a chance as you were ever going to get.
Yes, Celtic really struggled at that time at Hampden. I remember a few under Lennon we were playing sailing, and then something would go wrong. I think there was sendings off, and then that one, Effie Ambrose gets sent off after Celtic are cruising, and we just didn't seem to recover from that. So that was you onto the League Cup final. That you've obviously seen at Celtic trophies come along with that, but did it feel like a different satisfaction getting there with a team like Ross County where you were part of it for the whole time?
Oh yeah, like the whole run up to the final was like unbelievable. We actually beat Inverness at Inverness in the quarter, which is obviously like a derby in its own way, and we had a terrible record at the Cali Stadium, and we went and won there in the quarterfinal, and then Celtic in the semi. So you've beaten your rivals and best team in the country on your way, and then you get the kind of cherry on top of a. And it's funny, it was actually probably more. I don't know, it was more intense going into the Hibs game because like the Celtic game is just a free hit almost.
Yeah.
Like obviously you want to win the game and you go in, like you do all your work and you do all this, but really, everyone knows on the day everything's going to go your way. But the final, it was especially Hibs were in the Championship at the time, although they had a very strong team.
It
was
team,
like, oh my God, you really good team. But we were fourth. I think we were fourth in the Premiership. We were in the quarterfinal of the Scottish. We were like, bloody hell, we're probably the favourites here, and like in some ways, you know what I mean. Like, whereas we have as much, maybe we have history against us, but on paper, we had just as much of a chance to win that game.
Gentlemen, Father's Day is just around the corner and our friends at Manscaped are here to ensure all the father figures out there are looking daddy material this June. Manscaped's Performance Package 4.0, which includes their signature Lawnmower 4.0, is the perfect bundle to tackle any and all old man hair from head to toe. This right here is no dad joke. Treat him and yourself and join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code TIMS at manscaped.com. Trust me, his Celtic dad bod will thank you. But wait, there's more. Manscaped just launched their brand new Boxers 2.0 that are, dare I say, the best boxers ever. These new boxers are packed with revolutionary features including the dual pouch, designed to cradle his boys in their own special space. This right here is a game changer. Dads, buy this for yourself. Sons, buy this for you and your Celtic dad. Ladies, buy this for your man. Come get a ballsack trimmer from your podcast mates. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code TIMS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code TIMS. Shake what your mama gave you. Nah, shake what your daddy gave you. Manscaped.
That Hibs midfield that day was absolutely sensational. They had a really good team at that season.
They did.
They were trying to get promotion as well under Alan Stubbs and go on to win the Scottish Cup as well. So there were no mugs, but that's certainly Jackson Irvine get man of the match, didn't he?
Yeah, again, a man possessed. It was basically a bloody man marking job. And I think I'm the first player to ever get man of the match for not doing anything with the ball and just stopping their best player doing anything on the day.
That was John McGinn, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. We basically matched them up in midfield. Like they played the diamond, and they had I think it was Liam Henderson, John, and
Scott Allen. Yeah.
Scott, I can't.
Dylan McGee.
100% sure. Yeah, it was maybe Dylan or might have been Kevin Thompson.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, but we basically got given like the bottom of this diamond against our three. It was just like man v man, like just kind of jewels all over the pitch. And listen, it was everything again went for us that day. We scoring late. We played well, especially in the first half, and winning the cup with a club like Ross County, and again with the run that we had and the teams we beat, pretty special, and remains the only kind of major trophy in the club's history.
Yes, always great to get a trophy up there, isn't it? See, when it gets towards the end of that season, are you sort of thinking in your head, maybe I move somewhere, go to a higher level than Ross County? Yeah,
it's definitely in the back of your mind, especially with the players that I was working with at the time. Martin Woods and Paul Quinn, guys that played Premier League Championship in England. Me and particularly Liam Boyce were kind of the younger guys that were kind of at that time. There was talk of us being the ones that would move on. And they were great, like really when I needed advice, and, they wanted to see us progress as well. And they were great, friends as much as they were like helpful for us as players as well. But they were brilliant with us during that time.
You get the move to Burton, and you already mentioned Clough as the manager. Like, you went to Burton, then you went to Hull, and you went from Clough to Leonard Slutsky. What are these two guys like to work under? It's pure chalk and cheese, but it must have just been chaos under these two guys as well.
I tell you, I've worked on some characters, and then I had Nigel Adkins come in after Slutsky as well, and in their own right, just obviously had really good managerial careers, but it's as different as you could ever imagine. As I say, Clough very much cut from that same cloth as his father, Martin O'Neill, Neil Lennon, these managers who, coach in this same way. And He was, as I say, he was brilliant for me. I played a full year in the championship. He brought me down there, again, to a club with very small, low expectations that we massively exceeded, and then going to Hull to work with, a guy who's managed the World Cup, Champions League, won trophies in Russia, and is arguably one of the most sensational characters you'll ever come across on the day-to-day. The just most bubbly, funny guy. Honestly, I really enjoyed it. I was genuinely gutted when he got sacked, and we weren't playing well at the time, and we were missing some ingredients. But with the players we had, we should never have had that season. But he was just, every day there was a new story. He was in something else as a character. He was. I'm sure if anyone, a quick YouTube of Leonid Slutsky will give you plenty to see.
He was box office, man, but it was just sort of Hull had come down that season, hadn't they? So did you sort of think maybe I can get a move to a team that's maybe on the way back up? But that championship is really difficult, especially for the teams that come down.
And hindsight's a wonderful thing. And at that time when I left, obviously I went to Burton, done well, and then for me the next step was to go and be in a competitive championship team and try and play in the Premier League. That was a dream. And the opportunity came to go to Hull, who had kind of bounced up and down twice at that time. Top manager, unbelievably strong squad. Michael Dawson's, Abel Hernandez's, Sebastian Larson,
good players, man.
Unbelievable players. We had young guys on loan like Fikayo Tomori, who's now AC Milan, and working with David Marshall and Alan McGregor, international goalkeepers. Our squad was stacked, but we just couldn't get it right. The balance just was missing between the motivation of the older players who maybe didn't have the same bite to get back there, and younger guys who maybe they were looking at they've got guys in that team. It's funny, I look now and I think they were probably looking at me coming from Burton and Albion and they're probably thinking, fucking hell, is this where we're at now? signing this kid from Burton, and I'm going in thinking, what a chance for me to go and, get to the top. So it's it just never quite clicked for us, especially that first year. But we had good moments as well.
Was it just all out attack from Slutsky? Was it just chaos?
Carnage, mate.
Because you scored loads of goals.
Every game, I think we drew one game 5-5 that year. I think we won 2 games 5 or 6-0 and lost 2 games 5 or 6-0. It was just, every week was just mayhem. You just didn't know what you were going to get. We looked, I didn't even mention Kamil Grzycki, Jared Bowen, Fraser Campbell. Honestly, it was every game could have been 5-5 and you wouldn't have batted an eyelid. It was all that chaos football. And I think we were the top scorers, we were the 3rd top scorers in the championship, and we finished 18th. So wrap your head around that. I think we did. I think we must have been up at the top of for both.
How did you find the championship? Because you played there for a number of years, and compared to the top league in Scotland, is it a better standard?
All in, yeah, it is a better standard. Obviously, the top end of the SPL is probably creeps at that bottom Premier League top championship kind of tier of clubs. It's difficult to compare, but all in all, from on an individual level, I would say it is probably slightly better. The big difference, as I'm sure most guys will say, is the X factor players. The real quality at the top end of the pitch that are just so ruthless. But in Scotland, throughout every team, throughout the spine of these teams, there are guys that are capable of playing at that level, for sure. At the end of the day, as I say, I think the real difference is the boys at the top end, those X factor guys that can win your game kind of with just pure quality.
So then that was you, left Hull at the end of the season, had a wee break. Was it an injury then, and before you signed for Hibs?
No, not an injury. COVID was a bit. Listen, it's a bit of a tale in itself, but it was a combination of bad timing, bad advice, and bad luck. I did 3 years at Hull. I had an option year, which I was keen to stay. I was vice captain of the club, 120 games, something like that, over 3 years, main part of the team, and I was keen to stay and continue being a part of that. The club during COVID, decided to go down a bit different path on a purely business decision. Myself and a lot of other boys got basically told that we weren't going to get our contracts renewed or offered anything new either. So, the chance was there for me to move on. And as I say, a free agent during COVID, probably, I went into that as a 26, 27-year-old, 26, I can't do 26, 27, I'm an international player at this point. I played at a World Cup the year before for Australia. I thought I'd have options coming out my ears as a free agent. But, there was just nothing, during that time. And football's probably found itself in a different place since then. And as I say, probably through some bad advice with the people I was working with at the time, I held off thinking that kind of perfect opportunity would come rather than, kind of going for an option where maybe it didn't have all the ingredients that I was looking for at that point in my career. But, I was so fortunate that opportunity came from Hibs, which, I was not expecting. The team who was, obviously having a fantastic season, third, fourth, and I think fourth at the time in the Premier League in both cups. And, when I got that phone call and the chance to go and be a part of the, even just for a few months, and it was, the perfect thing for me. I know the league, I knew the players, and, it was a chance for me to build back into the game after nearly 10 months without football.
What did you do in those 10 months? Were you just training yourself?
Yeah, in a park on my own, like literally. It's like a bad dream. It's like a bad dream. I was speaking to my girlfriend about this the other day, and obviously the position I'm in now, kind of 18 months later, where I'm at in my club career and internationally. At that time, I genuinely thought I didn't know where I was. I didn't know if I was going to have a career at that time. I was in a bloody park in Hull, with a fucking Labrador chasing me, kicking my cones away when I'm trying to do drills on my own. That was where I was at for 6-7 months. And as I say, it's a funny old game. You can go from up here to down there in next to no time through all those factors I just said: bad timing, bad advice, bad luck.
Yeah, it seems like it's obviously a great career, but it can be very hard like that, as you said. International, peak of your career, left a championship club. You think there'll be plenty of offers, but you did make it to Hibs. How difficult was it at that time playing with no crowds and having all the restrictions where you were in Edinburgh, but you couldn't go out, you couldn't socialise with people, you were just basically training, and even training must have been different from the way you're used to as well?
Yeah, it was bizarre. We were in, I think there's at a Hibs training ground, there's kind of 4 changing rooms, and there was maybe 6 players in each dressing room. So you're not even getting that, you go into a new club, you want to get amongst the boys, that kind of camaraderie. It's difficult to even get amongst that because of the way that the restrictions are laid out. As you say, I've never lived in Edinburgh. Obviously, I've been in Glasgow a long time, and I was keen to get amongst it. Couldn't, nothing much you could do. And and then of course the big one was just no crowds, which is just, especially when it comes to the big games. Obviously we played in a semi-final and a cup final that season without crowds. It's it just doesn't feel the same. That energy's missing, that little edge that gives these fixtures wasn't there. So it was a bizarre time. It really was.
It wasn't. I just think I've sort of blocked out my mind because of the season Celtic had last year, but there's even games that I can't remember at all. And you played against Celtic a couple of times, you played against Rangers. How difficult is it when you're playing against these big teams and there's just nobody there? There's nothing to feed off. Do you just need to get that hunger for yourself?
Yeah, you've just got to drive it yourself. That's what it's all about. You need to find that, through players, senior players, experienced players, manager. You've got to bring that energy yourselves. And, I think we could see through, a lot of the performances from those top teams that there was at times there's that it's difficult to manufacture that feeling if it's not happening naturally. But for us, it's hard to say whether it's a positive or a negative effect on the game. You know what I mean? Because I know particularly when you go somewhere like Parkhead or Ibrox, and when you're under the pump and the crowd's up, it's like the world's on top of you. You know what I mean? So when you haven't got that and you can kind of feel your way into a game, it's probably easier in ways. But then also when you play them at home and you want that for yourself, that kind of edge to give you that little bit to go and try and get something. It's lacking too. So it's difficult to say whether it helped or didn't, especially in those bigger games.
Do you think that's the case for Hibs played against St Johnstone in the cup final? St Johnstone won both cups that year, but do you think Hibs would have had a bigger crowd at Hampden on those days? Do you think the crowd could have just pushed you on? Because a lot was made, Neil Lennon used to talk about it, we're really missing the crowd, and a lot of fans didn't really want to hear that because they've got better players, but do you think it does have an effect?
It has an effect for sure, but at the end of the day, I think, it's hard to say. St Johnstone were just honestly a massive bogey team for us that season. Like they beat us in the semi-final and the other of the League Cup. I think they beat us, or we drew. I think we got beat or drew both games in the league. I think we lost one, drew one in the league, and then got beat in the final as well. Like they just had our number that year. Like it's difficult sometimes to say. Obviously, we look at the performances and we were poor and we could have been better and the crowd could have helped. But I don't know. It just sometimes it was just everything. Like it just feels like this team has just got us here. And it was a bit like that in those games. Even when we were pushing at our hardest, it just, I don't know. It felt like they just had answers for everything the way that we played.
Right, Jackson. That's plenty of last season. COVID, Celtic were terrible, all that nonsense. Signing for the good guys. How did the move to St Pauli come about? Was there an option to stay at Hibs or?
Yeah, there was an option to stay at Hibs, and it was a very difficult one to turn down. I honestly loved my time there. A good relationship with the manager, the players. Obviously, we had finished third, cup final, semi-final. Obviously, we wanted to do better in those games, but all in all, it was a successful season for the club. Although I'm sure the fans will disagree, obviously, with the way that when you finish on the last game of the season, it's a cup final loss. Everything feels like you've finished on a negative, I guess. But the option was there, but for me, I think after what I'd been through the year before, or the 6 months before that, and the situation I was in with my partner and where I was in my life at that time, the opportunity to go and have a big change was what I wanted and what I needed. And when this opportunity came, it was I had some conversations with some, other options that were potentially outside the UK as well. But when this one came, obviously with the history and the links and who I am as a person and the conversation, it took a very brief conversation with the sporting director and coach here to convince me that this was like just exactly what I wanted and what I needed in my life and in my career.
The values of the club, was that something you considered when to go to them? That because St Pauli are seen as one of these good teams, they've got good values. Is that something you took into consideration?
Yeah, like definitely part of the conversation. Like obviously ultimately the football is going to be the deciding factor because that's what you're here to do. But when you look at the big picture of what else comes with that and the city, the culture of the club, the fans, like all those ingredients are just like, couldn't have aligned more with my kind of personality and the way I see the world and football. And as I say, ultimately it was probably one of the defining factors in what brought me here.
What's harder, learning German or learning Scottish when you first came over?
I'm Scottish family, so fortunately that bit came easy. But when I speak to the guys here, we have whenever I like, if I get a voice note or something from my mates in like our Glasgow group chat, sometimes I'll just play it for the guys like in the dressing room. They honestly think it's like Norwegian or something like that. They're like, that cannot be English, like cannot be. So, but German just creeps it.
My pal is Australian and she asked me to send her a voice note of me saying burglar alarm because Scottish people struggle with that. I was like, cheers for that. The St Pauli is a really good move. The German, they're in the second tier, but how's the standard of football there? Because there's like Werder Bremen, Schalke, Hamburg, there's some huge teams down there.
Like, if any, there's the biggest eye opener in my career has been leaving the UK, and in the best way possible, not in the best way possible. I think Britain, Scotland, and England, we are trapped in a football bubble in ways, and we really, I don't know, like it's great. I love it. Like I watch all the Scottish teams when they play in Europe, and I'll still watch the Championship, and I absolutely love those leagues and I follow them closely. But coming here and being a part of football here and culture of football in this country and the standard and size of the clubs in this league has been, it's been such an eye-opener and kind of it's been totally changed my concept of the way I see football. And, as you say, what the clubs you're talking about here and being in the second league here is, well, first of all, madness in Germany. Probably no one can believe that you've got these clubs all in this league. But even, us away from those teams, the support bases and the standard of football here is like, it's exceptional. And I've loved every minute of it.
What are the big differences you're talking about there?
Like, well, to be honest, the kind of structure of the games is totally different. Like, the games are so much more controlled. Sometimes in Championship in Scotland, it feels like the game is just a toss of a coin, and it's going to be either a moment of quality or a mistake or a set piece that decides it. I feel like more often than not, the games here are far more structured, and the team that actually gets the game right on the day tends to win more often than not, rather than in Scotland, it feels like you could play brilliant and get beat 2-0 or
more tactical,
or play. Yeah, it's the football is definitely more controlled, more structured, more tactical. One thing I will say is the lack of midweek games means physically I'm running more and putting in higher numbers than I ever have done in my career, which I think is a huge factor as well. The recovery time you have between games is a massive thing. It's probably something I never really thought of or considered before, because I'm used to playing 50-game seasons everywhere I've been and traveling for international and doing these things. But being here and seeing the kind of physical level I can play at when you don't play on a Tuesday or it's really surprised me. And I'm not sure if that is just the structure of the game or due to the way the league is laid out, even having the winter break. But those little differences have definitely surprised me.
So it's a better all-round culture player-wise, because you do get those breaks. It's not just constant football all the time. But what about fan-wise? How different is it then?
Well, all I can compare it to is obviously the St. Pauli fans, and it's the most unique place you can ever imagine. Like, it's been well documented now. Like, I don't drive here. I take the bus or the train to train, and then I live in St. Pauli. I walk to the stadium on a match day, and like, it's stuff that you would never consider to be possible in the UK, just because of the fan culture around the highs and lows of the way they treat players. When you're playing well and the team's doing well, you're on this pedestal of like worship almost. And when the team is poor and you're not playing well, it's a level of abuse that's like, should not be tolerated. But listen, that's football, and we all accept what comes with that. But for me here, the culture around the club and the way that the attitude to us, they appreciate that you want to be a part of the community, that you bring attitude and positivity. Of course, they want to see the team play well and perform and win games, but more than anything, it's like the conversations I have with people here. It's like you've embraced the values of the club. You've become a part of the community, and and then your contributions on the football pitch have been, we see maximal effort and that you fight and that you want to do the right things. And the attitude to that has just shocked me that it's kind of something I didn't think was kind of possible in modern football. What
about in terms of the difference between British football and St. Pauli, in terms of the structure of the club with tactics, training, sports science? Do you think they're ahead? Germany's ahead of Britain in that case?
I wouldn't say there's a massive difference, to be honest. I will say, obviously, because of the lack of games, we definitely train more and train harder here, which definitely helps on the tactical side of things, because it gives you way more time to work on things and prepare. When you're playing on Saturday, you're playing on a Tuesday, you can have a Sunday off, and a Monday is going to be a light session to recover. You're not going to be working on, game plan. It's difficult sometimes to even have the time to do any of these things. So for us, that's been a big part of it. But I wouldn't say it's miles ahead or miles different in terms of the day-to-day structure of training, sports science, and these things. I would say the general attitude to training here is, because we train more, is different. And it's, I think in the UK, training is a bit of a chore at times. We get caught in this cycle of just games, and all you want to do is just play games. You don't want to, sit in a meeting room for an hour watching clips and it's that's the culture. You want to come in, play, and have a Sunday off. That's what, when I think about football in the UK, that's kind of been the way. And here, it's less days off, more training, but it's amazing the cycle you get into and how quickly you adapt to that kind of different attitude.
It seems to be working for you. Point behind in the league, 8 games to go, gunning for that title.
Mate, five out of 8 at home. We've still got to play. I think we've got to play 4 of the top 6, and 3 of them are at home. Big trip to Schalke on the second last day as well, with full stadiums back. So, listen, couldn't be more exciting. Like, it's just unbelievable to be at this point of the season. Probably wouldn't have dreamed of it 6 months ago. So, fully embracing it.
Yeah, is that the aim? Obviously, you want to win the league, but would playing in the top flight in Germany be something you'd really want to do?
I think, to be honest, mate, it'd be the pinnacle of your career. Like, to have the opportunity to play in a top 5 league. I've not had the opportunity to play European football in terms of Europa League or Champions League. I've played it at a good standard my whole career, but the chance to play at in a top 5 league, nonetheless, not rather than just a top division, would be, would be unbelievable. And for us as a club to do it, with I think it was 10, 11 years since the last time St. Pauli had a promotion season, and if we could do it, it would be a monumental achievement from the club and for us as players.
What's the big derby like against Hamburg?
Class, so good. Again, it's when it's like any derby. When it's bigger than football, it means more to people than just a game. And obviously, the political divides in the city that the clubs represent is maybe not quite as strong as in Glasgow, but it definitely exists. And that definitely gives it that extra spice.
Do you see yourself long term at St. Pauli?
I don't see myself going anywhere anytime soon. It would take something outrageous to get me out of here. And at 29, I don't know if that opportunity is going to be coming my way anytime soon. So, I've definitely found a home for myself here. And, if we can, achieve that ultimate goal against the Bundesliga, that would be unbelievable. But even so, I'm more than happy in this city and in this club.
Yeah, sounds like a class place to live, mate. Right, that's the club football done. On to the international stuff, and we'll get a wee chat about the man of the hour, Ange Postecoglou, as well. Playing for Australia, like you mentioned, maybe playing in the top league in Germany would be the pinnacle, but is playing for Australia the biggest honour you can have as a player?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, obviously your domestic career is the international career is a reward for your domestic career. And fortunately, I've had the opportunity to represent my country at 3 major tournaments, and over a career that spanned a number of years, and I'm hoping that it will go on for a few more, and to have played at that level against the teams I've competed against is just unbelievable honour, and it will be some of your fondest memories of your career, that's for sure.
Yeah, you got your first cap under when you were at Ross County. That's some going getting a cap for there, but you spoke about Ange Postecoglou before, but how different is this guy compared to the other managers you've had? Because you've worked under really good managers, but they've all got different things about them. How different is he?
Yeah, he's, as they all are in their own way, but he's very unique. The atmosphere and the environment that he created in those, and from my understanding, it's totally different to what it's like on the day-to-day at Celtic, and the way he is at club football, because I had other boys that worked with him in the Australian League on the day-to-day, and international football, especially when you play for Australia, with the travel and the way that it works for us, it's always, you have such limited preparation to go into these games, and the way that Ange managed to get a philosophy of football style and mentality and attitude and culture into that team in 72 hours, like in the build up to a game, was, in hindsight now, it's unbelievable. It was unbelievable. He never worked individually. It was never about players like Jackson playing here or him playing there. It was about the system, the structure, and and being able to play a role within that when you were playing. And he ultimately was the one that gave me my international career. You know, the chance to, you know, I had that one kind of scattered cap back in 2013 or whatever it was, and you know, it was under Ange that I became a regular part of the squad. And you know, this was a midfield that had Mile Jedinak, and there was an Aaron Moyer in the Premier League, and Tom Rogic, Massimo Luongo's at QPR, and you know, like we had hugely experienced guys in that area of the pitch, and you know, he kind of brought me in alongside them and gave me, you know, I played, you know, quite a lot of minutes, probably more than I expected to in those years, and massive respect for him as a coach and as a person.
Yeah, I'm reading his book now, and he's talked a lot about the Australian side when he is the manager, and you're just like, this guy's a genius, man. He's on another level. His way of thinking. He managed to win the Asian Cup for Australia and then go into the Confederations Cup, and you were a big part of that squad. I mean, how much went into that? Because as we've seen in the games, like Chile, Germany, and Cameroon, it's a tough ask, in Australia going in there, but he's went toe to toe with them in every game, didn't you?
Oh, like I remember, like I was on the bench against Germany in the first game, and I remember that first 15 minutes, like because of like his attitude, as all Celtic fans have seen now, is front foot, aggressive, positive, everything, all your actions and everything you do against whoever, and that is just the way he sees football. And you know, and we all every team he has, as you can see, he builds that culture that every player buys into it, because they, you know, the way he can turn it that quickly, it's unbelievable. So
how does he get you? Sorry to jump in. How does he get you buy in so much? Because it seems all the players are all in. How does he create that?
It's like, he's obviously, you know, I talk about motivation through those other factors that there's different managers have, whether it's kind of like that element of like fear and aggression, or his comes more from a place of like passion and inspiration, I guess, in ways. Like he used to be able to just I think Ryan McGowan told another kid, just thinking about stories that I remember boys telling, like he would always give his pre-match speech before the pre-match meal. He would never do it right before the game. And it's like, honestly, you'd come out of this meeting and you would just want to go and fucking header your bowl of spaghetti. Like he would have you, honestly, he'd have you wired, like, and this is 3 hours before the game. And it's like, to be honest, it's probably a good thing, because if he did that right before the game, boys would go out and someone would get a red card within 5 minutes, because
do an Effie.
You know, yeah, exactly. He just used to be able to just harness this like energy within you, and then I could just unleash it. But yeah, that Confederations Cup was unbelievable, and obviously that Chile game, probably the most fun and most enjoyable game I've ever had of football, playing against the way they played, the champions of South America. They'd won back-to-back Copa Americas. And it was like watching, you know, kind of how Leeds play now, in that just open man for man style all over the park. It was unbelievable.
Oh, it must have been two managers going up against it, two teams that pressing. You came on as a sub against Cameroon, then you started against Chile, up against Vidal, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like crazy. Again, these are like the kind of moments. It was probably the first time I'd come up against like a world-class player. Like I think, like especially in that kind of situation, like I played against top players in moments in my career and teams as well, but I think that was probably the first time I was like playing against somebody. I was like, this is like as I say, this is a world-class player. And that experience of being, and he's how aggressive he is, and how the competitive nature of his game as well. It was some fight. It was, as I say, it was probably the most enjoyable game of football I've ever played.
That's class, man. What formation did you just play in that turn? Was it 3-4-2-1? Yeah,
it was like a back three with wing backs. So yeah, and then a box midfield. So 2 6s, 2 10s, and a striker. So it was 3-4-2-1. Exactly, kind of what you said there. Yeah.
Was it that class to play in? Because that's quite a fluid formation.
Yeah, it was madness. Like, and we used to play with wingers as the wing backs as well. Like, like, do you know what I mean? Like, you'd play like absolutely no defensive mindset whatsoever. It was the first couple of times we played it. Obviously, it's a bit of a shock to the system. But then once you get to grips with it, and that system was designed for us to compete against the best teams, you know, and sometimes it actually worked better against the better opposition, if that makes sense.
Did you come on? You'd come on for Tom Rogic a lot for Australia, but did you play in one of the 2 6s or one of the 2 10s in the Chile game?
In the Chile game, I played as one of the 6s actually.
But defensive duties as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, God, it was it was crazy. It was I actually don't think I'd played as a 6 within that system before that game. I'd only played as a 10, and then it was like we went into that last game, and he just checked, like, as I say, Moy and Rogic, who are probably our 2 kind of mainstay midfielders, if not players in general, and he took them both out and played me and one of the other lads kind of in this game, and it was madness. And probably none of us were expecting it, and it was it was actually that game I signed for Hull. That Confederations Cup was obviously in Russia, and Slutsky had been obviously following it closely as a former Russian national team manager. And we had a lot of when I spoke with him, he spoke a lot about that tournament before I signed for Hull, which was a few weeks later.
You touted Ange for a big job. Did you ever expect the Celtic job would come up for him?
Never in a million years. It's so funny. Like, people think there was some background knowledge or insight. That's just pure coincidence. I'd always, I think a lot of us had said when we worked with him that we'd love to see him or work with him on the day-to-day or see him manage in Europe. And, as more than anything, just as a fellow Australian football fan, Australian football person, you just want to see how, the people in our game be successful. And, he's definitely shown probably a different side to what people think about football in our part of the world.
When you said that it doesn't matter who he comes up against, he'll still play the same way, and it may be better against the bigger teams. Celtic conceded a lot of goals in Europe this year. Mm-hmm. It's always, Ange will stick to this system, but he played 3 at the back then. He's playing 4-3-3 now. He can adapt. But do you agree that he should just go in with this and jinx Celtic will be better in Europe next season after having a full year under him?
I think the club knows fully, when they will have spoken to him and had these conversations early doors, what kind of attitude he has. And
I love it, man. I love it.
Yeah, I love it as well. And, to be fair, more than anything, it's a testament to how, going into that, trying to explain to people in Australia what that Glasgow football bubble is like, or anywhere else in the world, even in England, they don't understand. Like, you can't understand until and I played the most minute part in that you can ever imagine. But even just existing within that world, being in the city, and the way that you're scrutinized and everything, and the way he's handled it going into that has been as good as I could ever imagine a manager going into that situation. And it got the fans on board straight away, and a belief and an understanding, and they can see the progress already. And I think more than anything, that's what people wanted to see. They wanted to see progress, and they wanted to see a plan, and they wanted to see all of those ingredients coming together. And you're seeing it now. And his attitude won't change. It will, the expectation will be that the team will just get better the more they do it. And I'm sure next season in Europe will, you'll probably find that they are more comfortable, especially in those moments.
Yeah, I was at a Q&A the other day at Celtic Park, and it was with Ange, and he actually mentioned your name, saying I used to come and see Scottish football a lot, watched it with Tom and Jackson, so he was always keeping an eye on you. How gutted were you when he left just before the World Cup? Because you're coming up against France, Denmark and Peru. It was a tough group going in there in Russia, wasn't it?
We were gutted, like absolutely gutted. It was the most grueling qualification campaign you could have imagined like that. Like, we played the most games, traveled the most miles of any country in anywhere in the world for that campaign, to qualify for the World Cup. We literally did it like the longest, hardest way you could have ever done it. And that last trip to the Honduras home and away, we literally flew around the whole world, the European players, because we flew around the east side, like across through Europe to America, to Honduras, played on the Thursday, and then flew Honduras around Hawaii to Australia to play on the Tuesday, and then Australia back to the Middle East to Europe again to play on the Saturday for our clubs. So it was literally like we'd literally gone around the world in 9-10 days, played 2 games. The emotional highs of obviously qualifying for the World Cup, and then everything that came with it. it was just so intense. And then obviously off the back end of that, when he kind of announced that he was going to kind of leave us after kind of that being a part of that journey together. And listen, you respect the man's decision. He's definitely a man of principle and a man of integrity. So, I'm sure that, he doesn't need to explain himself to anybody why he made that decision. But from a personal point of view, the players were obviously gutted.
How difficult was the World Cup then going into that? Was it still a massive honour, but it was a change of style, change of the way he's played, wasn't it? And going up against France and Denmark and that, you were a sub in all the games and came on. How much a pinnacle was that for your career?
Literally as opposite a style as you can ever imagine. We went from, as I said, playing a qualification campaign of front foot, positive, mad football, to a manager coming in 6 weeks before a tournament and saying block, mid-block, compact, literally everything we've been doing for the last 4 years was just out the window in 5 weeks before the World Cup. So listen, we're adaptable players, Australians. That's why, you see our boys playing in every league in the world, from Asia to Europe to, everywhere you can imagine. So, we're adaptable players, and that's why we're kind of able to do that. But for myself as well, being, playing against the world champions, against, Denmark, who are, one of the top teams in Europe and the world as well. And obviously, again, the games didn't quite swing our way, but we were more than competitive and, if not a bit unlucky, especially in the first 2 games, I thought we gave a really good account of ourselves. And, obviously at that level, it's quality and small margins that are the difference. And that was ultimately the reason we never made it out of the group.
Yeah, it's a tough. You always get the tough groups, don't you, man?
Yeah, God, some of our groups at tournaments have been madness. I remember, was it 2010? We had Spain, Holland, and 2014, I think it was Spain, Holland, and Chile in the group that year. And 2010 was Germany, Ghana, and Serbia. It's always like that.
That's what you want, but when you get to that stage to go up against the big players, like France, you're up against Canada. You come on for Tom Rogic a lot of the time, yeah? Yeah,
all 3 games. I think I was a straight swap for Tom in all 3 games. So we went opposite again. No, I think it's just a change in style of player. It was safe to say as well when you subbed me and Tom off for one another.
You became quite the oracle on that open goal. You mentioned Ange Postecoglou, and then you mentioned another up-and-coming player in Australia, Riley McGree, and then he almost signed for Celtic as well, and then moved to Middlesbrough in the last couple of seconds.
Who have I mentioned in this? Because they'll end up being one in here. Someone will be signing here, and
I manifest somebody good for Celtic to sign next.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'll throw a name out by the end.
Last wee bit here before we finish up, Jackson. Thanks for your time. But you've got big game coming up in the next couple of weeks for Australia. You're actually coming up a familiar Celtic, Japan. You'll be up against Maeda and Hitati. You and Tom Rogic. Looking forward to the qualifiers.
Yeah. Listen, Japan, Australia is it's the biggest game in Asia, really. We've got such a strong history of games against each other. They're an unbelievable side. They've got some top players, but we've got everything to play for both sides. It's going to be fantastic, and kind of massive stadium in Australia. We're expecting 75, 80,000 people. It's going to be unbelievable. So for us as players, myself and Tom, the experienced guys who've kind of been there and played in these games now, it's for us it's a chance to go and do something pretty special, win this game, and give us a chance to go automatically.
It must be, I don't want to put too much pressure on you, but mad looking at it. In 6 months' time, you could be champions and playing in the Bundesliga, or could be promoted up to the Bundesliga and playing at the World Cup. Is that the sort of thing that drives you on every day?
You got to pinch yourself sometimes. It's you as a footballer, as a professional, you try and you do all you can to try and live out your career and have special moments and memories. And, as I said, probably what I think I said from the very opening of this was that at this point right now, I'm probably in the most exciting phase of my career as I've ever had. And, those prospects, you can't shy away from them. You can't hide from them. I think some people get, one game at a time, this and that. And of course you do have that mentality, but big picture, sometimes you've got to step back and think, wow, this is like unbelievable, the opportunity that I've got. And listen, it might not fall your way, or things don't always, football's, as we've seen, it's a roller coaster. It doesn't always go the way you expect, but just being in a position to be able to achieve those things, and it's as exciting as you could ever be. And as you say, it's why you get up every day, and you've got the best job in the world to go and try and live out these kinds of dreams.
That's brilliant, mate. I hope you get there. I'm sure you will, because you'll put in the effort. You're still 29 years old, still get plenty of your career left, but you're a smart guy. You're quite a hipster guy. Definitely the most stylish guy we've ever had on the podcast. What's your plans once your career comes to an end? Is it going to coaching, or is it going to be opening a coffee shop somewhere or something along those lines?
I would love to get involved in something more artistic and cultural, that's for sure. And I'm sure I'll have that opportunity. And it's funny, people, a lot of people have kind of started, when you get to your late 20s, people start to ask those questions of, thoughts beyond your career. But, for me, I'm deep down, I'm just a massive football nerd, and I can't imagine football not being like a main part of my life, whether it's in a coaching position or punditry position. I've not really considered in what format that will be, but I can't imagine football will ever leave my life, in any big way, because, it is, my ultimate passion. As much as I love fashion and the arts and music and these things, it's, it all kind of still revolves back to that ball. So I'll, it'd be interesting to see where I end up in the next few years. I didn't ever think I'd be in Germany. So maybe, there's something for me in Europe.
Well, you've picked a class city for the music in Hamburg, haven't you?
Yeah, very famous city in the music world. So I'm a stone's throw from Berlin, and these kinds of places. It's as I say, it's been a total eye opener, a culture change, and it's if anyone ever has a chance to get here, like it's well worth the trip.
Yeah, I've been to Berlin. I've been to Union Berlin and Hertha Berlin games, but bucket list is get to a St. Pauli game, man. That's on the agenda now that things are opened up again. Right, Jackson. Thanks very much for your time, mate. You've given us more than enough, and some of the insights you've given us in here have been absolutely brilliant. Thanks so much for joining us.
No, my pleasure, mate. Nice to speak to you.
I hope you get there at the end of the season. Hope you get to Qatar as well. I'll be watching the Australia-Japan game next week, so I'll be cheering on you and Rogic against you and Hatate, so it'll be a bit of a clash, but we'll see how it goes. Thanks a lot, mate.
Yeah, good man. See you soon.